Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Today's Tuesday. Got the ghost of Face Patrick Henry Gordon joining me today. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, CannCon. How are you?
I am doing amazing. Beard is looking fantastic, by the way.
Appreciate it, bro. Yeah, it's coming in. It's coming in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming in. You make it through the itchy phase? You there yet? We good?
Yeah. I'm out of the itchy phase now. I mean, I'm the tail end of it. So.
All right, that's the hardest part. Once you get through that, it's smooth sailing from there. So
yeah,
here you go. Got to get you some of that soft disclosure beard oil now to soften that thing up and make it so you don't, your wife isn't complaining when you give her a kiss. You're poking me.
Damn right. Yep.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. Before we get into today's news, let's go ahead and check out our sponsor. Speaking of soft disclosure,
the following ad is rated M for mature. Soft Disclosure wants you to get naked this Valentine's Day with limited edition his and her bundles that save you 20% off the individual retail prices. Proprietary oil infusions, grass-finished beef tallow, goat's milk from American goats, locally grown herbs and ingredients. Soft Disclosure is putting America First fruits on your skin.
And for these sexy bundles, we've added an all-new boar's haired beard brush and a solid jade gua sha. And the reason I'm here is because Alpha doesn't know how to say these words.
Gusha. His, hers. We need a moment to calm down. Don't hide your skin. Disclose it. Get naked this Valentine's Day with Soft Disclosure. Head over to softdisclosure.com and save 20% off individual retail prices with our his and hers customizable bundles, and use promo code NAKED to save 15% off the rest of the site. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Promo code does not apply to bundle discounts.
all right, softdisclosure.com, promo code NAKED, which they need to clarify is actually the name of one of the scents because it is not scented. So it sounds, hey, it's rated M for mature, man. And apparently Alpha can't say Valentine's Day. He says Valentine's Day. Like,
Yeah, it's good stuff.
he actually does. He doesn't say Valentine with an N. He says it with an M, which is Alpha, man. That's Alpha. You got to love him. So, all right, guys, if you have not done so yet, smash that thumbs up and let's jump into the news. We're going to start out with some news out of Washington regarding the looming government shutdown and whether or not that's actually going to happen. We've now got some interesting movement on the SAVE Act, and there's back and forth, and it's kind of interesting that Trump is siding with Schumer on this, actually. But check out this little clip here of Burchett and Una Panuna talking about the SAVE Act.
And Rich and Luna and myself are not willing to allow that to happen. So based on your discussion, it sounds like you're moving towards.
Yes, based on our discussion right now, we're moving towards it. Also, we got assurances on the standing filibuster, which is incredibly important. I don't know if you guys remember when I was talking about inherent contempt. A lot of people didn't know what that is. The standing filibuster is an old school parliamentary procedure, but it's a way to break through what we consider traditional norms to get voter ID passed. I think that it's brilliant that they came up with it, but exactly that's why we kind of have these discussions, and we're very happy about that one. So there should be a standing filibuster announced soon, and I would actually reach out to Senator Thun's office to ask him about that because they have different rules in the Senate.
So that'll get you to yes tomorrow on the rule.
Yeah, as of right now, we feel very comfortable where we're at based on what we are discussing.
Can I get your reaction to the Clintons agreeing to testify before the Oversight Committee?
All right. So the whole concept here is that in order to pass the SAVE Act, they're going to use a standing filibuster to get through the rules, not to get it, passed in the Senate. It's been passed in the House, bipartisan support. But the Senate's been stonewalling this for quite a while. And now there's kind of the rumors that they're going to throw it into all into the 5-bill spending package that's going to come up for DHS. We did play Anna Paulina Luna, but I'll save the buckwheat for a little bit later. This article here from Fox News: Schumer nukes GOP push for quote unquote Jim Crow era voter ID laws in Trump backed shutdown package. It says Chuck Schumer warned the House.
Oh, got it. Continue, please. I'm sorry.
You're good. It is pretty funny. Chuck Schumer warned that if House Republicans try to jam voter ID into the Trump-backed funding deal, it would be dead on arrival. House Republicans are demanding that the 5-bill funding package, which stripped out the DHS spending bill, also include the House Republicans' updated SAVE Act, the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility Act. Schumer said, quote, "I have said it before and I'll say it again. The SAVE Act would impose Jim Crow type laws to the entire country and is dead on arrival in the Senate," Schumer said in a statement. Quote, "It's a poison pill that will kill any legislation that is attached to it. If House Republicans add the SAVE Act to the bipartisan appropriations package, it will lead to another prolonged Trump government shutdown. The updated version of the SAVE Act would require that people present photo ID before voting and that states obtain proof of citizenship in person while people register to vote and remove all non-citizens from the voter rolls." Now, President Trump, surprisingly, seems like he's aligning with Schumer on this. He put out this truth yesterday afternoon saying, "I'm working hard with Speaker Johnson to get the current funding deal, which passed in the Senate last week, through the House and to my desk where I will sign it into law immediately. We need to get the government open, and I hope all Republicans and Democrats will join me in supporting this bill and send it to my desk without delay." And then this is the alleged support for Schumer. Well, not necessarily for Schumer, but not for adding the SAVE Act. He says, quote, "There can be no changes at this time," meaning they can't add the SAVE Act into it. "We will work together in good faith to address the issues that have been raised, but we cannot have another long, pointless, and destructive shutdown that will hurt our country so badly, one that will not benefit Republicans or Democrats. I hope everyone will vote yes."
Will it actually damage our country to have the government shut down, though? That's the question. Like I need somebody to lay out the arithmetic and explain to me exactly how our lives are going to be damaged. I mean, my opinion is that every day that this atrocity continues to operate, they're just stealing more of our money. It's like a criminal cartel stealing our money, spending our money more and more every day. I mean, the DHS, the core stuff, they've already explained in years past that when the government shuts down, the core functions continue to operate. That stuff continues to get funded, right? That's
what I said. That's the core. The core is all we need.
Yeah, it's all the superfluous bullshit that loses its funding, which is fantastic. I want more of that. Chuck Schumer talking about Jim Crow laws is laugh out loud funny because he's just saying that black people are just as stupid and ignorant as they were in the 1860s when they were freed from slavery, because of course they had no access to education, they had no access to information, and he's basically saying that in 160 years they haven't progressed at all, and they're just as ignorant as they were 160 years ago. So the guy from the guy from New York is just as racist as he claims the people from the South are. So the irony there, but of course,
that's That's not new for them. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that the inner city black population can't figure out how to use their phone to figure
a laptop?
Out
they can't figure out how to use the internet. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like astounding how racist some of these old guys are. They are. I mean, like these old Democrats, especially the ones from places that have a lot more diversity, like New York. They tend to be racist as hell, man. But many such cases. I mean, go around the world and you'll kind of find that everywhere.
So I want to show you guys, this is the most recent polling from Gallup. Okay. Rasmussen's also done polling on this, which is a little bit higher than this, but this is what Schumer is telling you the American people don't want, because it's a Jim Crow era law. American support for election law policies requiring all voters to provide photo identification at their voting place in order to vote. 84% in favor. 84%. Name one other thing in this country that we are aligned on 84% together. Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing. There is nothing in this country that Democrats and Republicans, your CNNs versus your Fox News, your MSNBCs versus your Newsmax, there is nothing that they can agree on 84% except voter ID. And it's being stonewalled like crazy. Now, I personally, I'm going to talk to you guys about how that's not actually what, the real people, not Una Panuna, not that she's not real, but like Brandon Gill, for example, who is, trying to get this through as well. They're not proposing that they stuff it into the stopgap bill that, the funding bills that are coming out, at least that I've seen. They're proposing that it gets passed alone, on its own, standalone, that Mitch McConnell needs to bring it to rules. John Thune needs to bring it to the Senate floor and get this bill passed before the midterms. And 84% of America agrees with it. But Chuck Schumer still wants to die on this hill. I think we all know why. It's not very difficult to uncover the reasoning for the Democrats wanting people to be able to vote without ID. But
but I also think that we're going to see some Republicans sneak in there and be like, well, I don't know if we want voter ID either. I don't know if we,
that's what we're doing in the Senate.
I don't know if we want election integrity, actually, guys. I mean, it's a great talking point for our campaigns, but do we actually want it? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're holding up in the Senate for that specific reason right there. Yep. So if I was House Republicans, you have a bipartisan bill like this. I know President Trump's saying don't put it in there. We got to pass it as it is, but I'd put it in there. I would put it in there and make this shutdown exclusively hinge on this bill, on the SAVE Act.
On election integrity.
Yeah, on election integrity that 84% of Americans support.
Yeah.
Do it. I'm sorry, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, and just from like a incentive structure standpoint, because that's how all these people operate. They all operate from like a what's in it for me moment, right? Like how is it going to benefit me as the politician to do this thing? And 99% of the time it's my donors are telling me to do this, right? Versus what the people actually, like their constituents actually want. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard went to Georgia and sees the servers, guys. I mean, it's over. It's over. I mean, it's over. Like you all, I mean, whoever is involved in this stuff is going to prison. So you might as well scramble to get on the right side of history optically. And maybe you can grovel at the feet of a judge or something and try to save your ass when the time comes. But it's over. Like Tulsi Gabbard went and got the servers. So like your play, but okay. The chess game's already been won. We're just doing the moves now until we get to the point where the election, stolen election stuff just becomes common knowledge.
Well, you'll see in a second here. We're going to go in depth on Tulsi Gabbard because they are going after her very hard.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Absolutely.
Yeah. You are seeing and this is probably more a conversation for why we vote, but it's front and center news right now, and you're seeing the obstruction in getting any accountability for for the 2020 election down in Georgia and the meltdown over this. Now you're literally seeing obstruction, and we'll get into all that stuff here in just a second. But I do want to highlight this. Brandon Gill, congressman from Texas, said, I just sent a letter to Mitch McConnell asking his committee to stop stalling the SAVE Act. 83% of Americans, looks like he's reading the same polls as me, 83% of Americans want proof of citizenship to vote, yet the Senate has done nothing for 300 days. 300 days this bill has been in committee in the Senate waiting for a markup. They do the markup, and then it brings to the, they bring it to the Senate floor. And they can get the markup like Una Panuna said, they can get the markup with a standing filibuster, so they can get it with that 50% minority. And I don't even think they need that. I think you're going to get Democrats. Fetterman will probably sign on to this. He's been kind of middle of the road Democrat lately. So we'll see what happens. And I do just want to point that out. I said the 84% that want to see photo ID, 83%, like Brandon Gill said right there, want to provide proof of citizenship in order to vote. So the one I don't like here is enacting automatic voter registration, whereby citizens are automatically registered to vote when they do business with the DMV. 60% are in favor of that. A lot's coming out on that as well over the last week or so.
I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a horrible idea. Me and Ash have talked about this ad nauseum on why we vote, because none of these entities collect any citizenship information. Most of them require just a driver's license to enroll in a lot of these government programs, and these government programs automatically enroll you to vote. Our voter rolls are flooded with illegals on there to vote. And when I say illegals, I'm not necessarily talking about illegal migrants that cross the southern border. I'm talking about green card holders, TPS people, people with immigrant visas, things like that are, legally in the country, but they're still not legal to vote. And so a lot of these people get, registered to vote. I think there's over 25 million between illegal immigrants, like illegal aliens, and, legal immigrants that are not citizens in this country. You're talking about 25 million. I mean, if even 10% of those are registered to vote, that's 2.5 million people. That can swing a national election.
What about the people who've moved all over the country who have registered to vote in like 5 different states? And it's not like when you move from one state to the next, you're going to the election commission and saying, "Hey, I'm moving. Please remove my name from the voter roll." And even if you did, would they actually do it? I mean,
that's the key right there. Some people do, like the National Change of Address, NCOA, but even then, I mean, it's a crapshoot whether or not they do that. And of course, we know that 21 states right now are still fighting the federal government about being able to audit these voter rolls. And they say they can't share this information with the federal government, like your social security number, et cetera, even though it's the federal government that literally administers
creates the social security. Like what? I mean, they're just such like blatant subversive criminals, and it's kind of pathetic how much we tolerate this crap. I mean, it's like we're sitting here negotiating with the mob about whether or not they should be able to, launder money, extort people, engage in prostitution, run guns through neighborhoods, sell drugs on the street corner, and they're like, well, why shouldn't we be able to sell drugs on the street corner? Why shouldn't we be able to recruit your daughters into becoming our prostitutes?
Yeah. All right, so here's we'll get into the story on Gabbard here. So Joe Kent puts this out on X. Like clockwork, DNI Gabbard finds 2020 election fraud, and days later, the Wall Street Journal publishes a cryptic hit piece from anonymous sources. This is the Russiagate impeachment hoax playbook meant to divert attention from the DNI's fight for the truth. And let's jump over to Just the News, because the Wall Street Journal article is behind a paywall that I can't even penetrate with archive. Whistleblower complaint on DNI Gabbard bears hallmarks of past attempt at anti-Trump controversies. It says a whistleblower complaint against DNI Gabbard alleging wrongdoing spilled out into the open. The Wall Street Journal reported on the existence of the complaint and repeated the whistleblower's lawyer's allegations that Gabbard stonewalled it. However, buried in the article is the fact that the agency's inspector general assessed that several of the allegations against Gabbard were deemed not credible, while others were not capable of being substantiated. It says now, interestingly enough, let me jump down here a little bit. And where is it? Oh, here it is. The acting inspector general that deemed it was not credible. Oh, well, that's just a partisan Trump appointee. Nope. It was a Biden leftover, actually. So it was a Biden inspector general in DNI that deemed the complaint against Tulsi Gabbard is not credible. The Wall Street Journal also reported the quote unquote highly classified complaint, quote, has sparked months of wrangling over how to share it with Congress, end quote, because the disclosure of its contents could cause quote unquote grave damage to national security. The subject of the complaint is not known other than it involves Gabbard. Jump down here. The Gabbard whistleblower lawyer Bakaj also represented the Ukraine whistleblower in 2019. Whistleblower aid, where Bakaj is the chief legal counsel, alleges that Gabbard violated the law by withholding the complaint from Congress. However, unlike the 2019 complaint, the intelligence community inspector general assessed that the complaint did not appear credible. And so Gabbard has no legal requirement or deadline for when the information should be sent to Congress. So there's no case here, right? This isn't like Ukraine where the inspector general said, yep, this is concerning. We need to send this to Congress and impeach President Trump over a bullshit claim from weaponized people like Adam Schiff. We need to send this to Congress. That wasn't the case here. But the Wall Street Journal is still running this as like some expose because, like Gordon said, Gabbard is on the ground in Fulton County. She knows what's going on. She's looking for it, and they're going to find it. They're going to find it.
Yeah, and it's really important to understand, and Gabbard might be the only person aside from Trump and DC who I have any like confidence in at this point. And here's why: because I've been tracking the behavior of people for years now, but specifically during the Trump administration. And that's really what I use for a lot of my analysis is I look more at how do these television characters react to news as opposed to whether or not the news stories are real. It doesn't really matter if the news stories are real. How are they reacting to the news, right? Because that'll tell you a lot about their motivations. And what I've noticed is that Gabbard, number one, is somebody who has been very anti-war. She's stuck to that. She has not waffled in that at any point. She came out immediately, like in March of last year, and said that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. There's no signs that they were. It was silly to suggest otherwise. And then, of course, like the intelligence community came out in the fall and affirmed all that and said, yeah, it doesn't look like actually they were working on any of this stuff. That was all propaganda. And now you're seeing for months now, you see the right-wing news basically talk about her being boxed out, her being on the outside looking in. She's not an important player. There are questions as to why she even DNI, because it doesn't seem like she's being included in any of the decision making. She seems to be on the outside of everything. To me, I think that is like soft affirmation for like devolution. Because I think a lot of these people who think they're running shit are not actually in charge of anything. And even if they're making decisions and sending it up the pipeline, those decisions are basically just being balled up and thrown in the trash. It's like, yeah, cool, dude. We're going to turn to the actual decision makers over here. So Gabbard is somebody who I think is a fascinating character. And I think I look to what she's doing as more signal to pretty much anyone else in the entire government aside from Trump.
So I'm with you on that. I've always thought that Gabbard was going to be kind of the wild card in the administration, that she specifically was put in that position. And I know Alpha and Josh have done some interesting, digs into Gabbard and confidence there. When I saw her on the ground there, it was interesting in Fulton County, the reaction that we got, like we were talking about, from the mainstream media. They freaked out. They absolutely freaked out. And all of a sudden the DNI, the director of national intelligence that oversees all 18 intelligence agencies in this country, all of a sudden now she's only allowed to deal with foreign intelligence, ignoring the fact that the FBI has an intelligence and counterintelligence gathering, aspect.
Ignoring the fact that for the past, what is it? Are we in like year 10 now of them saying that we had foreign interference in our elections? I mean, what are we talking about here? Yeah,
exactly.
Their own logic doesn't even add up. That's how they're such pernicious liars, that their own logic, they can't even keep track of their own lies.
So Tulsi Gabbard put this out last night. Contrary to the blatantly false and slanderous accusations being made against me by members of Congress and their friends in the propaganda media, the ODNI has and will continue to take action under my statutory authorities to secure our nation and ensure the integrity of our elections. And I wrote an article about this on Gateway Pundit, but let me just go ahead and read some of the highlights from here. Actually, you know what? Let me go to my article, because I hit the quote's pretty good, the specific parts of the letters right there. So she says, quote, "My presence was requested by the president and executed under my broad statutory authority to coordinate, integrate, and analyze intelligence related to election security, including counterintelligence, foreign and other malign influence in cybersecurity. The FBI's intelligence/counterintelligence divisions are one of those 18 elements that I oversee. She says, quote, in 12 FBI field offices across the country, including the Atlanta field office, the senior FBI official, the SAC or the assistant director in charge, is dual-hatted as my domestic DNI representative. The domestic DNI rep program was established in 2011 through a memorandum of understanding between the ODNI and the FBI. So she has, dual hats working in the FBI that report to the DNI. So she does have an interest in, being there. Jump down here, and there's three main parts that she talks about in this letter. She says, quote, as I publicly highlighted in 10 April 2025 letter, ODNI has been actively reviewing intelligence reporting and assessments on election integrity since I took office. As part of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center's responsibility to lead, manage, and coordinate counterintel matters related to election security, NCSC personnel traveled with me to Fulton County to support this effort. She mentions that they were not present for the execution of the warrant. So there's the meltdown from the mainstream media. Interesting. DNI also had, other people on the ground. That's news.
Yeah. Well, and just going back to my remarks from before about how people react to information, when I see the entire apparatus mobilized against her, especially like in light of the election stuff in Georgia, that's when my ears perk up. That's like the first time I actually got really excited about a development in the election integrity stuff, is because, every single other time we hear something that potentially is exciting and then gets stonewalled and shut down. And so when I see Tulsi Gabbard on the ground in Georgia, that's when my ears perk up and I'm like, all right, this thing now has legs and it seems like we're actually moving forward. And remember, like a month or two ago, I mean, for how long have like recently I expressed frustration because when are we going to start kicking down doors and just sending the pipe hitters in to just seize the evidence so that the evidence can be laid out and presented in a court of law to the American people? Like, when is that going to happen? And now that's happened, and now they're freaking out, and now they're basically trying to cast her as some sort of a villain. So I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, keep that pipe hitter comment front of mind here, because I got another story that we'll talk about here in just a second that plays to that. DNI Gabbard states that, quote, to preserve the integrity of our elections, we must understand whether there has been foreign or other malign interference in our elections, end quote, and whether vulnerabilities exist for possible future exploitation. Now, we know that those vulnerabilities exist. The software has the encryption keys literally hard coded into the software. Like you can get the passwords to access these systems through open records requests. This was uncovered in Georgia and many other states. DVS Corp 08 ! Was the password. Phil Davis talked about this on Why We Vote in a 7-part series that Ash and I did with him. Let's not forget the BIOS passwords that Jenna Griswold had published on the Secretary of State's website for almost 6 months leading up to the 2024 election. I mean, there is significant evidence that anybody who knows where to look for this information can easily obtain the information necessary to access these systems. That is not disputable, right? Jenna Griswold should be in prison. That is, there is no, due process and everything, but how are there not charges for publishing passwords to a secure system that's critical infrastructure on your website? I still can't get over that. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah. And then it's, the question becomes, okay, like the allegations or like the analysis that it's RICO and that it's, there's an ongoing investigation. Okay, fine. But at another, like the other half of it is, all right, at a certain point, there is a dereliction of duty question where it's like, if you weren't bringing charges, like, are you in on it too, law enforcement? So those questions, it's very fair for being on the outside looking in, fully understanding that there might be a plan, fully understanding that there might be, something happening behind closed doors that we can't be privy to. Therefore, it's our job to hold their feet to the fire and say, well, if you're not bringing charges when there's clearly been criminal misconduct, we now need to point the camera at you. We have to point the spotlight at you and start looking at you and saying, why are you not bringing charges? Maybe you're complicit in all of this. And, that's how citizen investigation should go. Like, we should be scrutinizing all these people at all times.
Yeah. Yeah. Reading on, it says, citing 102A of the National Security Act of 1947, Gabbard claims she has, quote, robust authority to coordinate and integrate national intelligence, including, quote, having access to all national intelligence consistent with other law, as well as the authority to establish objectives, priorities, and guidance for the intelligence community to ensure timely and effective collection, processing, analysis, and dissemination of national intelligence. Further, Section 65OA of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 provides for the designation of a national counterintelligence officer within the NCSC to lead, manage, and coordinate counterintel matters related to election security. And then Gabbard also invoked Executive Order 13848, originally signed by President Trump in 2018 and extended by Joe Biden in 2022. The executive order, quote, tasked DNI with assessing foreign interference after every federal election. It goes on to say that, quote, as I publicly stated in April 2025, there's information and intelligence reporting suggesting that electronic voting systems being used in the United States have long been vulnerable to exploitation that could result in enabling determined actors to manipulate the results of the votes being cast with the intent to change the outcome of an election. This is why they are out. Gabbard is not effing around. Gordon, have you ever seen the show The Diplomat?
I've not.
Okay. Well, just a quick little spoiler alert here so that if anybody watching it, the new season just came out recently. They're dealing with a crisis in this show. Massive crisis. Not as big as stolen elections, but pretty damn close. Something that would put America in the show on the brink of war with a historic close ally, right? Like full-blown war. Like it's gone through different levels of escalation. And the whole time, the president knows a secret that if that secret came out, the war would be inevitable. It would already be bombs would be flying. This is that same thing. Like I don't know, people need to understand how bad this is going to get. This is going to get incredibly ugly. We're seeing Tulsi. We're seeing the SAVE Act being thwarted. They know that this is the gig is up. The gig is up. Like Chris Paul says, I think they're frantically working in the background to try and figure out how to, kind of softly disclose this, shameless plug, but also at the same time implement a new system that's going to be so much better. And it's just, much of the same that we're going to get here. So again, this whole thing is going to get significantly uglier before it gets any better. And there's going to be massive attacks in the media. There's going to be stories that are utter nonsense, like the one against Gabbard here, the whistleblower one against Gabbard. We'll talk about Ed Martin here in just a second, but I'll let you jump in.
Oh, yeah. And I'll take it a step further. They're going to turn on Trump. And when I say they, I mean, not just the Republican Party. I mean, people in his administration, I expect are going to turn against him. I fully expect that. I mean, my speculation has long been since like the week after the election when he started appointing people, the first person he appointed, the first high profile position he filled was the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. The minute I saw that, because I knew all about Mike Huckabee and his position on Palestine, I said, this is a feint. This is not, he's not doing this in earnest. He's doing this because he wants to put this guy front and center because this guy is going to ultimately be subversive to his agenda of peace in the Middle East. And that, like, we'll look at that when we get to the geopolitical stuff. But Mike Huckabee is now turning on Trump, and he is now subverting his, like, openly in the Israeli media, subverting Trump and saying that Trump is lying publicly when he's making certain promises to certain countries. So I think that's going to accelerate. I think we're going to see massive character assassination campaigns. I mean, this whole Epstein drop. I mean, there's now a whole narrative that Trump is controlled by Israel and that Jared Kushner's his handler. Like, that came out as part of the Epstein drop. I think all that's BS, but who put that in there? I mean, I think actually maybe the people who are like the Zionists put that in there because they know that narrative is out there. Trump has leaned into it. He's totally adopted it and been like, yeah, this is like, of course we're going to do everything we can for Israel and prioritize them over the American people. And you pointed to one fictional television program. Another one I look at is I've been telling everyone to watch it, is The Rip. This movie that just came out a few weeks ago with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon about law enforcement in Southern Florida, Miami, versus the cartels, and how sometimes to catch the real bad guys who are, wearing the uniform, you have to pretend to be a bad guy. And when you do so, then the other bad guys are then either coming to you and saying, all right, let's work together, or they're saying, hey, we need to beat this guy before he usurps, the business from us. But it's all about, that's like the cat and mouse game. That's the kayfabe that we talk about. Like, why do you do kayfabe? You don't do kayfabe because the public like to wake up the normies. You're doing kayfabe because you are sitting next to bad guys who are presenting themselves as good guys, and they're putting on the MAGA hat and they're saying, oh yeah, we're all about America first. But really what they're doing is they are trying to perpetuate a system that has enslaved you. And that includes war, and that includes stolen elections, and that includes all the things we talk about on this platform.
I got there's a U.S. senator, former U.S. senator, who has come out with some discussions. And in those discussions, these are, they were supposed to be private discussions. It's talked about how, he would always, kind of publicly agree with President Trump, but then in the background, he would have, concerns with certain things, and they would bring it up, and the two of them would discuss it, and they would come out with an agreement. They would figure it out, get to the bottom, make their gripes heard and everything like that. And, that plays into the whole kayfabe narrative that kayfabe is 100% correct. It's actually, true. And that a lot of these public perceptions that we have of these people and President Trump's relationship with them is nothing but a facade that's put out there in the public. And I think of, the Lindsey Grahams, for example, where, Lindsey Graham, he touts him as the greatest ever, but then in reality, he's pushing back on him, and he still does need his vote for a lot of these things, right? President Trump, he understands, a transactional guy, that you need these people. And so you do have to, kind of placate to them a little bit on some of these things. But ultimately, I think we're moving in the right direction, but you're going to see these people turn against him publicly. Now, I think that you're spot on. It's going to turn into a public display of defiance, so to speak, and I hate the term defiance because it sounds kind of authoritarian, like back against
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's not like Lindsey Graham has turned on Trump so many times. I mean, if you go back to his first term, he turned on him, I think, at least 3 times that I can think of. And if he wasn't turning on Trump specifically, he was turning on the thing that Trump was doing in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. But really, what I've noticed from Lindsey Graham, I published a take in the Badlands news brief the other day where I just put a bunch of clips in there. It's like, here are all the people who are subverting Trump right now. Huckabee was one of them. Lindsey Graham was another one. Mark Levin was another one. Mark Levin's part of the Trump administration, guys. I hope like that's one of the reasons I always talk about him. He is part of the DHS anti-Semitism task force. So his job is basically to advise Tulsi Gabbard and Tom Homan on how to combat anti-Semitism at the DHS level. That's his official role. And he's out. I mean, just go look at him. I mean, he is like chimping out, throwing his feces at the wall right now. We'll get to that in the geopolitics. But Lindsey Graham the other day went on Fox News on Sunday and said and accused Trump of being Obama. He said, now is not the time to speak like Reagan and act like Obama. You better start dropping bombs on Iran. That's what he said. We will play the clip. So they are subverting him. It's not open defiance, though. It's basically like, it's like threat of ridicule almost. It's like, hey, if you don't do the thing that you promised us you were going to do, we're all going to call you a pussy, and you're going to look like a pussy in the eyes of the American people. Like that's kind of that's the angle they're taking. But I think it's going to get a lot, like you said, a lot uglier here in the next couple of days or weeks.
So here's another example. Paul Sperry put this out. DOJ sources tell me that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a registered Democrat through 2024, fired Ed Martin on December 31st and effectively shut down the Weaponization Working Group office. Blanche cleared out the Weaponization Group suite at Main Justice to make room for the latest Epstein file production. Blanche denied Martin's staff and budget is gumming up the works and staff and budget and is gumming up the works for Russiagate accountability. Now, you can't verify all that. I don't know when he was actually removed from weaponization. He was moved from weaponization. He was removed from it. He is not fired from DOJ. He is still the pardon attorney, according to DOJ spokesperson. He is still the pardon attorney, but he has been removed from the weaponization group. This includes the Russiagate investigation, a lot of election investigations. Kind of mixed feelings on this from people. I know we're all rooting for Ed Martin. He's done decent work as far as what we can see on the surface, but Paul Sperry is exactly right about DOJ not giving him the resources that he needs. And this is something I've heard from my sources for the better part of the year, that Ed Martin is not getting what he needs in terms of people, investigators, budget, and all that stuff to actually effectuate his mission and do his job. And so now with him leaving and focusing on pardons, I don't know if this was a move to kind of thwart the investigations into elections, Russiagate, all that stuff, or if this is diverting his focus specifically to the pardons, right? And the reason I say that is because we still got the auto pen pardons are still a thing, right? We still have the pardons right here. And this is the key one. The members of Congress who served on the select committee for J6 are all pardoned. The Capitol Police, all pardoned. The staff of the select committee, all pardoned.
Blanket pardons.
Yeah. And the DC Metropolitan Police Department and Capitol Police, they're all pardoned. So, you think about the members on the J6 sham committee, you think of their staff, that's a big net. That is a lot of people who are intricately and intimately involved in Russiagate and everything else. And so I don't know if this is an effort to try and, get the focus on the auto pen pardons and get that overturned. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Ed Martin has been putting out a lot of stuff that I think is interesting, and this stuff like his language and the fact, again, he's one of those people who the whole apparatus mobilized against him, right? They mobilized against him to keep him from getting confirmed. So whenever I see that, I'm just like, okay, this is somebody who obviously the establishment does not want in near any position of power, right? Versus conversely, Marco Rubio was unanimously confirmed by both the Democrats and the Republicans. And even Trump has joked about that and been like, when I saw that happen, I was kind of like, whoa, maybe this wasn't the right choice. He's ribbed Marco about that. As recently as 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, in a public commentary, he said that he was ribbing Marco because Marco got unanimous confirmation. So I think when Chris Paul says you should withhold belief, I would highly encourage everybody to withhold belief when it comes to liking people, when it comes to being like, oh, I really like this guy, he's somebody who's a good guy. Let's not put the cart before the horse here. Let's take a step back and see what they do, because I think what Trump has done here is he's opened up the war tent. He's let both the good guys and the bad guys in. He's given them all a seat at the table, and now he's letting the game play out, right? Knowing that he's already collaborating and colluding with the generals in the other war tent. They're already perfectly copacetic and on the same page. We're not going to have a war, but we're going to let this war situation play out. And we're going to see how our lieutenants behave and who tries to subvert certain things and who tries to push us over the brink into war, knowing that we're not actually going to have a war. And then the same thing, I'd take that same template and apply it to election integrity, apply it to the justice, the whole justice retribution stuff, the weaponization, the NGOs, the USAID. Just that is kind of seems to be the template, is put the good guys and bad guys together and then see who does the right thing. And we're seeing a lot of people who people thought were good guys not doing the right thing consistently.
So True Deplorable in the chat says, what are your thoughts on Sidney Powell meeting with Ed Martin? And that's in reference to a picture that Ed Martin put up last week of him. This was after the raid in Fulton County, of him meeting with Sidney Powell. Now, to be clear, I don't know specifically that they had a meeting or if that was just a photo op. I don't know if that was a photo from, prior from in the past, and he just posted it for that day. I don't know any of the details. I haven't seen that. However, the fact that he posted that, and Sidney Powell being someone who is intimately involved in this weaponization and a victim of it and has defended victims of it. She's a victim herself in the Trump RICO case in Georgia, which that's going to be making some headlines here in the next couple days. Just mark my words on that. But she was a victim of that. She was also, the attorney that represented General Flynn when he was, targeted by a weaponized government. And so, for Paul Sperry to say that Blanche fired him on December 31st, yet just last week, Ed Martin is posting, photos with somebody that is a victim of the weaponization and somebody intimately involved. That tells me that there's something else going on here. Perhaps, when Tulsi Gabbard gets on the ground, there's more, there's implications beyond just what the DOJ is capable of handling. I don't know, but I'm just speculating. It is strange that Ed Martin posted that photo, though, while he's allegedly not working in weaponization.
Well, and one last thing, speaking of weaponization and Marco Rubio, did you see that in the Epstein drop that Epstein emailed, I forget who it was, and said that Marco Rubio is the one who initially funded the Steele dossier? And then
we knew that, though. We knew that the Republicans initially funded it.
Yeah. But he specifically, this is like back in 16. This is at the end. This is at the October 2016. He said, yeah, it was specifically Rubio, though. Like he singles out Rubio. He doesn't list off Republicans. He just says it was Rubio who did it. And then somebody went and did a dig on X. Name escapes me. It might have been Gen X girl. Who then found it was Paul Singer, Paul Singer is responsible for creating Marco Rubio. Like he's the donor that created the entity known as Marco Rubio. And again, like the callback to Maria Corina Machado. Rubio is the one who nominated her for a Nobel Peace Prize last year before Trump won the election. So again, like withhold belief on any of these people. If that turns out to be true, if Rubio is the one who funded the Steele dossier initially with Paul Singer and others, and then handed it over to the Clintons, and the Clintons ran with it. I mean, that's pretty spicy.
Yeah. I want to cover this right here. So this is an older post, but this was in response. Chad Mitzel, who's former chief of staff at DOJ under Trump, says federal grand jury in Maryland is now investigating whether Trump allies Bill Pulte and the Justice Department Ed Martin improperly assigned unauthorized people to investigate mortgage fraud. Mitzel responds and says, free advice, don't listen to folks who have no clue how DOJ works. By confirming where the evidence of Schiff's illegal conduct originated, DOJ isn't investigating their own. DOJ is getting ready to indict Schiff. Ed Martin and Bill Pulte are fine. Schiff needs to lawyer up. Now, that's key right there. They're getting ready to indict Schiff. Schiff needs to lawyer up. And Ed Martin responds to Chad Mitzel. This is back in November, and says it's always difficult to comment on an ongoing investigation, but Chad Mitzel knows of what he speaks. And so the reason I think it's interesting now, if Ed Martin is moved exclusively to pardon the pardon attorney in DOJ, is Schiff has preemptive pardons. You can't touch him right now. So maybe those are ready to go. The indictments are ready to go, and now you gotta pierce the veil and get through the auto pen. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah, remember Trump said all of the pardons are illegitimate except for Hunter. Hunter's the only one who had a legitimate pardon. Interesting.
Very interesting. I mean, when he said that, I was like, "Whoa, that's yeah."
And then you consider the fact that Hunter had two laptops, not one, but two laptops that he forgot that he left at laptop. I think it was two different shops, right?
Yeah. No,
I can't remember if it was two different shops or the same shop, but it was definitely two different laptops. And it's like two different laptops, both loaded up with all the evidence of corruption, and you just happen to leave them both at a laptop repair shop.
Well, this is so jumping in, I want to talk about this article briefly because I did talk about it on Why We Vote on Friday. I kind of broke it on Friday. This is exclusive from Gateway. I published it on Gateway, but this was an exclusive story that I had. And when we talk about, the pipe hitters, right? We all thought the pipe hitters were coming into Fulton County. Well, they didn't have a pipe hitter there originally. And when the 26 count report outlining the massive and widespread election fraud and destruction of evidence, etc., in Fulton County specifically, the FBI, rather than taking that as a probable cause to a magistrate to get a search warrant, the then special agent in charge sent a letter off to Fulton County, which is like the 10th letter. I mean, Fulton County has had 3 subpoenas, several lawsuits, a DOJ request from Marjorie Taylor Greene to formally investigate. Harmeet Dillon has sent 2 letters. Like, we're done with the letters, right? We're done with the letters. And what does this FBI special agent in charge in the Atlanta field office do? He sends a letter. And not only does he send a letter, he sends a letter asking if they voluntarily want to hand over this evidence. He doesn't date the letter. He doesn't give them a date by which to comply. He sends it to the wrong freaking person. Okay. Everybody knows that the physical ballots in Fulton County were in possession of the clerk of the Superior Court. This came out because Nadine Williams, the woman that he sent this letter to, said, we don't have these ballots. That was the response to DOJ. And here is the FBI special agent in charge kicking the can down the road, giving them an unlimited window from which to respond. And oh, by the way, he can't spell tally records or tally sheets or poll tapes. Misspellings all over the place. It was just an atrocious letter. And so
not a strongly worded letter. This is like a lukewarm worded letter.
This is not even a strongly worded letter. This is basically bowing down to Fulton County and saying, hey, like Oliver Twist, please, sir, can I have some more? That's what they're saying. Like, beat me more, Fulton County. Beat me more.
Yeah. So like that's a situation where I would say, all right, we should investigate that guy and see what his connections are and see what his background is. And, because he could be complicit, like in on it.
Yeah. Again, like I said, there's going to be a lot more coming out on Fulton County, maybe today, maybe, I don't know. All right, let's jump into this story here from James Comer, Rep. Comer. The Clintons are in contempt of Congress. Their attorney's latest letter makes clear that they still expect special treatment because of their last name. The Clintons do not get to dictate the terms of their lawful subpoenas, and I have rejected their latest offer. And he sent, the oversight committee sent this strongly worded letter basically saying that the Clintons are not, setting the tones. And when they say like matters related to Epstein, Clinton is not going to get to define what related to Epstein means, because if Clinton gets to define that, it's going to be an incredibly narrow scope. So, basically saying, hey, comply with the subpoena. Now, what's interesting is, reading this letter, this is the letter that's saying, hey, we find you in contempt. The Clinton spokesperson, Angel Urania, writes back, they negotiated in good faith. You did not. They told you under oath what they know, but you don't care. But the former president and former secretary will be there. They look forward to setting a precedent that applies to everyone. I'm not sure what he means by they will be there, but there's no date given in that letter. There's no offer to have another hearing and to sit down. This is the letter saying this is what you guys effed up on. And now you're in the FO part of the FO. So I'm not really sure what Urania is referring to there, saying that the secretary and the former president will be there also, and that they look forward to setting a precedent that applies to everyone. I mean, I think Bannon and Navarro set that precedent, and, they're just executing it now against the Clintons. But with all the calls, to Nuremberg, the Trump administration after 2028, it's kind of interesting that veiled threat that they're setting a precedent that applies to everyone.
After 2028?
Well, assuming,
you're forecasting. Got it.
Yeah. So all these lefties are coming out now saying we have to Nuremberg trial the whole Trump administration. All of these people need to go to prison. And it's like, good luck. You guys have been trying that for a decade and it hasn't worked. So F off.
Yeah. I mean, be careful what you ask for. I mean, and one of the things that I've kind of been cautioning people on is, with the Epstein thing, it's just the French Revolution. Like Matt Aird has really educated me. I always kind of knew this, but he's really given me details and sauce. The French Revolution started out as something really great, and Thomas Jefferson went over there and tried to help him. And then, basically intelligence agents. This is pre-intelligence community, but assets went in there from Britain and from the London bankers, and basically took control of the crowds and directed them towards innocent, good people. And then those people got their heads lopped off, and then all of a sudden it turned ugly, and innocent people were getting dragged up. And that's what I think they're trying to do here, is they're trying to throw out the bad people that they can afford to burn, but then they're also throwing in names of good people, and they're saying we should get these people too, right? So that's a real danger. But be careful with what you wish for the Nuremberg stuff, because it might be your heroes that end up on the chopping block.
Well, also, like Colonel Towner pointed out yesterday on X, the Nuremberg trials were basically propaganda bullshit, and they didn't amount to much of anything. Everybody keeps saying Nuremberg,
Yeah.
and I think there's only like 8 convictions in Nuremberg.
Yeah, my understanding is that the guys who were convicted, the guys who were even charged, were the ones who refused to comply. The portion of the Third Reich that cut the deal with the West and became like the commanders of NATO and became the high-ranking members of the UN. Those are the ones who were like the bad guys. And then the ones who refused to do that, who said that's dishonorable, I'm not going to do that. Those are the ones who got thrown into Nuremberg, and all the nonsense kind of got put on their shoulders.
Okay, so they had 199 defendants, 24 defendants in the military tribunal, 177 defendants in the 12 subsequent Nuremberg trials. And of the 199, 161 were convicted, 37 were sentenced to death, including 12 executed in the first trial. But like you said, all the big cheese went to Operation Paperclip. They went to Argentina. They went to Chile.
Yep. Those are the ones who were willing to hunt down and murder their compatriots. Otto Scorsese Scorsini being Hitler's personal bodyguard. He went to go work for Mossad, and he went and hunted down all of the Nazi scientists who were working for Egypt and the Soviets and everyone, and killed all of his old friends. So those are the kind of people who ended up surviving from the Third Reich, and they became the heroes of the West, the heroes of the UN, the heroes of NATO. So it's a very perverse history that we've been taught.
Yep. All right. How about, before we move on to the next story, let's go ahead and talk about one of our sponsors here. All right, Badlands fam, I want you to take a second and share something that I actually use, and I love it. I use it every single day. If you've been around for a while, I'm not big on hype, but this product is absolutely amazing. Love it. Collagen isn't just about nails or skin. As we get older, our body stops producing as much of this critical protein, starting in our late 20s, as a matter of fact. And that's when joints can start aching, recovery slows down, and everything just feels harder. This specific collagen is grass-fed, pasture-raised, and designed to support joints, bones, mobility, skin, hair, all the stuff that we tend to lose with age. What I like is how easy it is. There's no weird taste, no complicated routine. Just add it to your coffee or smoothie, and voila, you're done. It's just part of my daily routine. Every morning it goes in my coffee. Right now, get a special bundle deal at a fraction of the retail price and free shipping. The offer is only available at getnativepath.com/Badlands. That's getnativepath.com/Badlands. If you've been thinking about supporting your body instead of just pushing through the aches and pains, go check it out. The link is in the show notes. Again, it's getnativepath.com/Badlands. I use it every single morning, put it in my coffee. Fantastic product. Does not clump. It does not, there's no issues with it whatsoever. And I love it. The only thing I will say, and I said this yesterday, don't mix it in carbonated seltzer waters. That's the only thing I've had problems with. And it got kind of interesting. Everything else is perfect. Water, coffee, juice, whatever. But don't something about the carbonation.
I know. Yeah, I normally just put it in water and just one touch it. Just put it in the tall glass of water and just yep.
It doesn't taste like anything. That's the
thing.
It
doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. It's easy to It's not something I'm going to nurse, but it's just one touch it.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next. Oh, wait, hold on. Never mind. Let's go ahead and got one more sponsor. I apologize, guys. When was the last time you actually woke up feeling rested and refreshed, or you got through your day without feeling totally stressed out? Yeah, over 50% of adults say that they'd feel better if they got more sleep, and stress is often the biggest barrier to that sleep. That's why CBD from CB Distillery makes so much sense. CB Distillery has natural solutions for sleep and stress that can help break that vicious stress sleep cycle. And everything from CB Distillery is premium quality, third-party tested, and free from artificial dyes or fillers. They're the source that I trust, and so do 2 million other happy customers. You can shop by benefit, whether you want better sleep, less stress, improved focus, pain relief after workouts, or even something for your pets. It's all right there. It's right at the top of the screen. You just tell it what you want, and it tells you what product is best suited for that desired outcome. It's fantastic. And me and my pets, we take the tinctures. They have pet tinctures. I have real people tinctures. I don't know what the difference is, but I don't want to take theirs, I guess. I don't know.
But is that like the difference between the human and pet ivermectin?
Yeah, we're not horses, people. Yeah, but my pets take the tinctures. I take the regular tinctures. So if you're ready to start sleeping better, stressing less, and just feeling good again, check out CB Distillery. Visit cbdistillery.com and use promo code Badlands for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code Badlands, cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. All right.
I'm not gonna dox our friends, but we have a lot of great people who come to GART, and a cattle rancher, he knows who I'm talking about, who I see at GART all the time, talks about how for years now, he's taken the paste, the horse paste, and he just rubs it all over his arms. And he's like, man, ever since I started doing that, like, I don't get sick anymore. Like, I feel way better. He's like, it definitely works. He's like, but this is the stuff I've been using on my animals my whole life. And now I started using it on myself, and it's great.
Yeah. The ivermectin, fenbendazole, cancer investigations, and whether or not it's a parasite, and all the stuff that's coming out about that.
It's interesting.
It is very interesting. Like,
I'm not a medical expert, so don't listen to me, but man, it is super interesting. And people who have a lot more experience with animals and that kind of stuff have told me things where I'm just like, man, we have been betrayed. Not even lied to. We've been betrayed.
I'm with you, brother. I am with you on that. All right, let's jump into this story here from The Guardian. Judge blocks Trump administration's stripping of Haitians' protected status. This is insane. Judge Anna Reyes issued a temporary stay that prevents Kristi Noem from implementing her decision to remove the status known as temporary protected status, which was scheduled to expire on Tuesday. Reyes notes that Noem referred to those seeking refuge in the U.S. as, quote, killers, leeches, or entitlement junkies, end quote. Hell yeah, based. She then notes that the plaintiff, 5 Haitian TPS holders, quote, are not. It emerges killers, leeches, or entitlement junkies. They are instead a neuroscientist researching Alzheimer's disease, a software engineer at a national bank, a laboratory assistant in toxicology, a college economics major, and a full-time registered nurse. So what? 5 people out of 350,000.
Well, I mean, those sound like people that Haiti could really use, like, to make their country great again, right? I mean, right? Why do we need those people?
Man, you are so freaking spot on with that comment. You took the words right out my mouth. It says Reyes said that the plaintiffs were likely to prevail on the merits, and that she found it, quote, substantially likely that Noem preordained her termination decision because of, quote, hostility to non-white immigrants. This judge said that Kristi Noem is a racist, and that's why she didn't do this. This is fucking insane that a judge is now telling, the delegate of the president of the United States, the executive of the United States of America, who has the plenary authority to renew this or not. Well, the DHS secretary under the president, whether or not to renew this TPS status, a judge is now saying, screw you, you can't do it. Haiti's TPS status was initially activated in 2010 after a catastrophic earthquake and has been extended multiple times. The country is racked by gang violence that has displaced hundreds of thousands of people. Well, if we just open our borders, like Gordon just said, and we let these people come over here and get educated and everything else, go back to Haiti and fix your fucking country, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, nothing's going to get better if we just say, hey, we'll take all your people and bring them over here and you guys can fight over it there. No. How about we get our intelligence out of Haiti? We get, our deep state, the Clintons and everybody else out of Haiti, and we let the people go back there and take control of their own damn country. I'm sorry. The United States is not the melting pot that everybody thinks it is, where we just take every single person in here and just, completely saturate American culture. I'm done with it.
Yeah. I learned, I was in grad school with a woman from Saudi Arabia, like 2012, and I learned from that like she told me she was in medical school. She was like a training to become a doctor, and then she transferred to the architecture program, and she basically, like, the Saudi government for years was sending people to educate, like they would pay for it all. They weren't like expecting free rides or anything. But they would send people to be educated in those high professions, right? Like medicine. And then the people were required to come back and serve like in Saudi, right? That was the program. Now you can say, okay, well, they're taking spots away from Americans, of course. That has shifted now, and now they've developed universities in Riyadh where they're now bringing in Chinese scientists and people from other countries to develop their own programs. But very different from this model, which is like just bring in the people from around the world, the refugees, allow them, educate them, take the positions away from Americans, force the taxpayers to pay for it, and then give them the jobs that Americans would otherwise have. It's very, very insidious, obviously.
I mean, the judge is basically saying in this case that, since 2010, so we're going on 16 years that they've had temporary protected status in the United States. There is no pathway to citizenship with TPS. When TPS expires, they have to technically go home, but a judge isn't going to let it expire. Just like, this is the once you give them power, they never give it back. That is the exclusive power of the executive branch. And for the government, the judiciary to come in there and basically call the DHS secretary a racist and say that because she's racist, she's not going to, she's going to send them back home. That's absurd. That's absurd. The president of the United States has way more intelligence than the judge will ever have. And if that's their decision to do it, for a judge to interfere in that, I fully expect this to be, challenged. This is, and Anna Reyes is no, her name pops up in a lot of these, TDS style cases and rulings. So, I mean, it'll be overturned, I think, in appeals at minimum. Maybe might have to go to the Supreme Court, but.
Yeah. I think it's ultimately. I mean, look, I'm not somebody who shills for powers of the federal government. I don't want the federal government to have expanded powers. But one of the core functions that it does serve is protecting our borders. That's like, national defense, protecting our borders. That's like almost the full scope of the federal government, right? And I would say that when you have migrants coming in and filling these kind of positions, these roles, being given college educations and jobs and everything, I consider that an invasion. So who is coordinating that? Like, follow the money. Like, is it NGOs? Is it politicians? What is it? Like what are the agencies that are doing all of this? And we need to understand this soup to nuts. We need to understand every single aspect of how this program was conducted, so we can dismantle it, prosecute the people who are behind it, and then put systems in place or change the system to make sure it never happens again. And then we have to be vigilant forever to make sure that these scoundrels don't come back and reinstitute it.
Yep. Here's another story. This one's a victory for the Trump administration from NBC. I meant to cover this yesterday, but we ran out of time. Judge allows ICE's Operation Metro Surge to continue in Minnesota. U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez denied a request from Minnesota officials. This is the Ellison Frey Walls lawsuit that they were bragging about a couple weeks ago. Denies the officials a temporary restraining order, despite acknowledging what she described as, quote, a profound and heartbreaking consequences for communities in the state, saying, quote, the Eighth Circuit has recently reiterated that entry or injunction barring the federal government from enforcing federal law imposes significant harm on the government, the judge wrote. The Minnesota officials argued that the operation violates the Constitution's 10th Amendment by unlawfully pressing the state to change or abandon so-called sanctuary policies and cooperate more fully with federal immigration authorities. Menendez said that those arguments, at least at this stage, were not strong enough to justify the blocking of the operation. Hopefully, I'm actually hoping that Ellison, Frey, and Walls and all the other litigants in this plaintiffs in this lawsuit, I'm hoping they appeal this. And I'm hoping the appeal on the 10th Amendment and whether or not they have the authority to declare sanctuary cities and states gets challenged up to the Court of Appeals and eventually to the Supreme Court, because I don't think they have that authority. Even under the 10th Amendment, I think that the president under Article 2 is tasked with repelling an invasion, and federal law states that you have to, go about coming into this country legally, right? That's I can't remember the exact statute off the top of my head, but it's against the law to criminally come into our country illegally. And so the 10th Amendment doesn't apply here. The president absolutely has the authority under both the Constitution and federal law to enforce immigration laws. And like you said just a moment ago, that is one of the core functions of the federal government. That is one that I stand behind. Yep. Me and Chris Paul have talked about DHS should not exist, but like Border Patrol and Customs should.
Under the military, in my opinion.
Under the military, I agree.
That should be a military function, and I have no problem with the military deploying on U.S. soil if it is to repel an invasion, which is what this is. And like last night on the Book of Trump, I highly recommend people go check that out. I had Oak on to talk about his time in Yugoslavia or Kosovo. And when you really go back and you understand what happened there, this is 1999. Yugoslavia, of course, when you hear Balkanization, you hear the Balkans. That's what that is. They balkanized. They took a country that had for decades 6 republics operating under one umbrella government. That's how Russia has always operated. 21 republics under one umbrella. They took historic ethnic divisions, 3 ethnicities that have lived in this kingdom for centuries. And then they exacerbated those divisions and they drove the balkanization to break up the country, right? That's I suspect the CIA was behind that. We didn't get into that part of the history. But what they're doing here is they're importing these cultures. They're importing these foreigners to create the same conditions. Instead of the people living side by side for centuries and, having their periodic disputes, they're just bringing in these foreign cultures, because when 2 cultures collide, they either integrate or they fight. And obviously these people who are showing up are not interested in becoming Americans. They are interested in importing wherever they came from.
Yeah. Real quick, Dunhee 3 in the chat said Article 4, Section 4. Yes, correct. I apologize. I think I said Article 2, but just, so you guys can all see it. And I've had this highlighted for a long time because I've talked about it many times. Article 4, Section 4, Republican form of government. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government, and shall, not may, not could, shall, meaning they must, protect each of them against invasion. And since, the president has declared it, and you can't declare yourself a sanctuary city or state and thwart the ability of the president under his constitutional Article 4 responsibility to protect the state, each state, against an invasion. So sanctuary states and cities are unconstitutional. There's no question about it. No question. By the way, to your point about the fight or assimilate, wife and I saw Greenland 2. Have you seen it?
I've not seen either one, but
dude,
should I watch it? Is
it's
it
so
worth
good. It's
okay.
Greenland 1 is good. Greenland 2 is a little. We enjoyed it, but you basically have warring factions in this Stone Age society, right? It's following a comet hitting Earth, and it's fascinating. Christie's.
I do enjoy analyzing like the deep state propaganda. I do enjoy
it's so great.
Analyzing what okay, here's what they're thinking. Here's what these sociopaths are planning.
Yeah, I watched that. I started thinking about it because the whole concept of the show, and this isn't a spoiler, it's in the programming, in the description of the show. A comet hits Earth, and I started thinking about it. I'm like, this came out in 2020. I was like, you named it Greenland, and President Trump is like, we really need Greenland, and what does he want Greenland for? To build a golden dome. And, we assume automatically that the Golden Dome is designed to intercept, missiles and stuff from other countries. But what if it's designed to intercept
asteroids?
So it is actually a really interesting show to watch.
That is an interesting idea.
And then the other one that just came out recently is House of not House of Cards, House of Attacks or House of War or something like that. And the whole concept of this show is an ICBM gets launched at us, and you see for the first time, anti-ballistic missile rockets, GRIs, I think it's called, that can't do their job. And so I don't know, just going off on a tangent here. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right, so let's jump in. I got a couple geopolitical articles to jump into first, and then I'm going to hand it over to Gordon. And Gordon, if you need to go off on a tangent on any of these, let me know.
Okay.
Bloomberg says Trump says he welcomes China, India investment in Venezuela oil. saying, quote, China is welcome to come in and we will make a great deal on oil, Trump told reporters on Air Force One. He added that the U.S. is working with India on a deal to purchase Venezuelan oil. Quote, India is coming in and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil as opposed to buying it from Iran. We've already made the deal, the concept of that deal. Earlier this week, Venezuela's acting president signed off on historic changes to the country's nationalist oil policy that would reduce taxes and allow greater ownership for foreign oil companies. Shortly after, the U.S. Treasury Department issued a general license expanding the ability for U.S. companies to export, sell, and refine crude coming from the sanctioned South American country. The U.S. is set to import the most Venezuelan oil in a year after the Trump admin moved to control the energy supply. As the U.S. emerges as the biggest recipient of Venezuelan oil following Maduro's capture, shipments to China, which averaged 400,000 barrels a day last year, fell to zero in January amid the U.S. naval crackdown. Now that leads into, you want to add anything on that?
No, keep going.
Okay, that jumps into President Trump's Truth Social post yesterday. It was an honor to speak with Prime Minister Modi of India this morning. He is one of my greatest friends and a powerful and respectful leader of his country. We spoke about many things, including trade and ending the war in Russia and Ukraine. He agreed to stop buying Russian oil and to buy much more from the United States and potentially Venezuela. This will help end the war in Ukraine, which is taking place right now, with thousands of people dying each and every week. Out of friendship and respect for Prime Minister Modi, and as per his request, effective immediately, we agreed to a trade deal between the U.S. and India, whereby the United States will charge a reduced reciprocal tariff, lowering it from 25% to 18%. They will likewise move forward to reduce their tariffs and non-tariff barriers against the United States to zero. The Prime Minister also committed to buy American at much higher level, in addition to over $500 billion of U.S. energy, technology, agriculture, coal, and many other products. Our amazing relationship with India will be even stronger going forward. Prime Minister Modi and I are two people that get things done, something that cannot be said for most. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then, of course, just briefly, Prime Minister Modi said, wonderful to speak with my dear friend, President Trump today. Delighted that made in India products will now have a reduced tariff of 18%. Big thanks to President Trump on behalf of the 1.4 billion people of India for the wonderful announcement. When two large economies and the world's largest democracies work together, it benefits our people and unlocks immense opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. President Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability, and prosperity. India fully supports his efforts for peace. That's so interesting that he adds that at the end there. I look forward to working closely with him to take our partnership to unprecedented heights.
There's a lot of things that are happening here that are really interesting. One, India is a historic ally of Israel and the Zionist movement. That's an important dynamic because you look at India versus Pakistan. Pakistan is obviously Muslim, the only Muslim nation in the world with nuclear weapons versus India. That was the yeah.
But before we go full blown like into the it's the Jews, unpack how this is going to affect Russia, because I mean India is in BRICS.
That's what I'm getting to. So okay. I'm not actually going I'm not going to Israel here. I'm just making a point.
Okay.
So Maduro was vehemently opposed to Israel, as was Hugo Chavez, right? That was one of the reasons that the Zionists and the neocons were so ardent, like so hell-bent on getting rid of Hugo Chavez and Maduro, is because they were so against Israel, to the extent that the Palestinian flag is flown next to the Venezuelan flag at Hugo Chavez's, where he's buried. So India is obviously like in that same camp with them. So the fact that now Trump has India buying oil from the Maduro government, because that's what Delcy Rodriguez is. She is the Maduro government. She's just the continuation of it. That is signal, like the fact that India is now buying oil from them. Saying that China is no longer buying oil from Venezuela, I don't know if that will stand up over time. We'll see. But what that means is now China is going to buy a lot more oil from Iran and a lot more oil from Russia. So that's going to push China closer, deeper into bed with Iran and Russia, which is going to shift. I mean, I'm guessing here. I mean, I don't know that for certain, but that's going to shift. That kind of shifts some of the dynamics happening there. Russia selling India all that oil, you have to remember they were selling India that oil at a major discount. So like they were like losing potentially, from an opportunity cost standpoint, they were losing money selling that oil to India. They were just doing it because they didn't have any other buyers because they were sanctioned. So they were selling a bunch of sanctioned oil to India at a huge discount. That wasn't going to that system wasn't going to maintain over time, right? And then the last thing if you want to add my screen,
sure.
This is here's a little bit of signal that this is being posited by Trump as like us versus China. This is like we're trying to get China out of our hemisphere, and that's probably true. Like we do want to be in control of our hemisphere completely. It doesn't mean that China and Russia can't trade in our hemisphere. I think we'll probably find that they will. But this is from last week. I covered this in my Friday show. Basically, what happened is that in the DRC, in the Congo, they put a 4-month like moratorium on any exports of rare earth minerals out of the DR Congo. And so what China did, because they own a bunch of these mines now, they basically said, all right, that's fine. We're just going to stockpile. We're just going to mine, and we're going to stockpile. And now they have 100,000 metric tons of copper, which is like billions and billions of pounds of copper that they are now shipping. It arrived, I believe, 3 days ago. It said it was scheduled to arrive in the U.S. by January 31st. 100,000 metric tons of copper, which is not just copper. It's also like all the submetals that copper becomes, right? That they're now they have now shipped from Chinese companies that have been mining in the DRC for over a decade. They're now shipping that, or have shipped that, to the U.S. So again, it's like the supply chain is evolving. We just got 100,000 metric tons of copper, which is a critical mineral in high-tech manufacturing. We bought it from China because we bought it from Chinese mining companies. It came out of the DR Congo. This is signal to me that it's not like we're not doing business with China. Of course, we're doing business with China, but there are these like shell games that are being played right now, where these shifting dynamics. All right, we're going to sell oil to India from Venezuela, even though it's the Maduro government. We're going to buy a bunch of copper from China. China's probably now going to go deeper into bed with Iran and Russia, I would imagine, because they're not buying oil from Venezuela anymore. I don't know. It's very, very interesting. And then of course you have Trump pushing the entire oil industry into Venezuela and saying, go back in there and invest billions of dollars and rebuild all of the infrastructure that is failing right now. China owns 30%. 30% of the license of that big oil belt off the coast of Venezuela. Sounds like the U.S. is going in there and rebuilding all the infrastructure. I don't know what that means for the Chinese company that operates there, but it's very interesting, the dynamics here, that Trump is kind of twisting the arm of the oil industry and saying, go back in there and invest and rebuild, and you'll be dealing with me. You won't be dealing with Venezuela. Don't worry about them.
That is very interesting. I did not know that the selling at a discount, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like Trump is doing Russia a favor by inserting themselves in that deal right there, as opposed to how it's portrayed that, India is kind of cutting off Russia. I thought perhaps it was, I wasn't clear if President Trump meant stop selling it to Russia until the war is over, because he does in the very next sentence say we need to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. So I didn't know, because he came out 2 weeks ago. Trump said that Ukraine is the one that's stalling the deal, not Russia. It's not Putin that's stalling this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if maybe this was turning the screws on him, but
yeah. Well, think about this too. It's like when you sanction Russia on their oil and say nobody can buy oil from Russia, and then India starts buying the oil from Russia, but they're buying it at a discount because Russia doesn't have any other buyers. Think about what that does for India. Like, you're giving India not only are you giving India a bunch of cheap oil to like help build up their own economy, but you're also strengthening the relationship between India and Russia. And this idea that Russia, India, and China are all going to get along because in 2022 we were about to have a war between China and India, which would have probably brought Russia in too on China's side. Now all of a sudden they're trading at high volumes, and they just announced a big trade deal between India and Russia. So he's basically making world peace by facilitating these massive trade deals where they become economically dependent on one another, and that entanglement disincentivizes, kinetic violence.
All right, let's jump into this story, and I'm excited to get this story because you and I have not yet talked about the Board of Peace. And, this over the weekend, I did my Saturday show, and I was reading an Associated Press article about the Board of Peace and the United Nations and comparing and contrasting the two. And the Mockingbird media is trying to push the United Nations so effing hard and talking about how all of our European allies refuse to join the Board of Peace and they're all in on the United Nations and blah, blah, blah. And then we get this story here yesterday from Euronews. United Nations risks, quote, imminent financial collapse, says Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns. Guterres' warning comes as U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has in recent months reduced its funding to some UN agencies and has rejected or delayed some mandatory contributions. Antonio Guterres, the head of the United Nations, urged nations to pay their dues on Friday, warning that the organization is in danger of going bankrupt and may run out of money by July. The UN faces chronic budget problems as some member states do not pay their mandatory contributions in full, while others do not pay on time. Quote, either all member states honor their obligations to pay in full and on time, or member states must fundamentally overhaul our financial rules to prevent an imminent financial collapse, Guterres wrote. My favorite part is this one right here. Tensions between the United States, Russia, and China, all permanent members with the veto power in the Security Council, the organization's highest decision-making body, have left the council paralyzed.
Yeah. This is a fascinating one. And here is let's see. Hold on one second. Let me open this.
Well, hold on. I got two more paragraphs before you.
Yeah. Keep going, and then I'll share this.
All right. So according to the UN, around $1.6 billion was recorded in unpaid contributions at the end of last year, 2025, more than twice as much as 2024. Even though more than 150 member states have paid their dues, unless collections drastically improve, we cannot fully execute the 2026 program budget approved in December, said Guterres, and the regular budget cash could run out by July. And of course, I thought it was fascinating there, Gordon, that it's all the sovereign alliance, the quote unquote sovereign alliance, that is the ones that's paralyzing the United Nations, the United States, Russia, and China. Now, in terms of the Board of Peace, I said this when we talked about it after the Davos speech, when they said Russia hasn't joined, China hasn't joined. Russia contributed $1 billion, I think, to the Gaza efforts, the peace efforts in Gaza.
They're planning. They're planning to. They said Putin said that he will take it out of the frozen assets, the assets that have been frozen by the West,
Right.
which is like $5 billion or something. He'll take it out of that, and he actually said he would take all the money and he would put it towards both Gaza and Ukraine to rebuild both of them.
Well, so again, I said this back then, I've said it since, and I still believe that we are in a fourth turning, that this is the high, that we're entering the golden age or the high, as Strauss and Howe wrote, and that the United Nations will be replaced by the Board of Peace. I think it's inevitable at this point. You're seeing, the globalists push back so hard, and because they realize that when this happens, the European Union is devastated. It's going to be militarily devastated, economically devastated, because for so long they've been dependent completely on the United States and in part Russia and China. And you're going to see this global realignment. And I think that China and Russia are going to join the Board of Peace. I just think that it's going to come at a very specific time, and it's going to be it's going to be an achieving moment for President Trump. And to do it right after Davos, when they're still melting down about the United Nations, is not the death blow that they're seeking. So I think this comes maybe 2 or 3 months from now.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Trump has a visit scheduled to China in April, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So my guess is we'll probably see something like evolve around then. China's been largely on the sidelines for the Middle East, even though they have a huge interest in both Saudi Arabia and Iran, among other places. But yes, you're right. Russia with the Board of Peace is critical. And remember, the plan, it seems like, with the Board of Peace is that they're going to create a committee for each one of these conflicts that needs to be resolved. The 8 conflicts that Trump has begun to resolve. But as they sign these peace deals, then you get more conflict after the peace deal gets signed. That seems to be the pattern. So now they need to really hunker down and focus on resolving the problem, which probably involves getting the NGOs and the money that's flowing in there out, because that seems to be funding, these militias, like ISIS. One of those, by the way, Kosovo, Serbia. That's one of the 8 that Trump is trying to resolve. So we got a 27-year conflict, basically, that we spoke about last night with Oak, that's still going on, that Trump is working on resolving. If you want to share my screen, what's interesting about this moment is here's an email from the Epstein files from September 17th, 2018. So this is 8 years ago, or 7.5 years ago. And it says, let's see. Davos can really replace the UN, cyber, crypto, genetics, intel coordination, like my stint at the Trilateral. This is Jeffrey Epstein writing this, and he's talking about the Trilateral Commission, which was set up by Henry Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski in 1973. He says issues now need to deal with the distributed trust and internet fallout. And then the Borj Brinde, I think is how you say it, responds, exactly. We need a new global architecture. World Economic Forum, Davos, is uniquely positioned to public-private best. And then Epstein replies, global architects first. So the plan clearly was, the UN is going to get replaced because the UN is an imperfect system in their eyes. There are too many problems with the UN. It doesn't give enough control to the elite because there's too many of these, third world governments who get a seat on the Security Council and kind of throw their weight around a little and get a little too mouthy. There's too many mouths to feed, and there's too much bleeding heart nonsense going on at the UN. So we need to really tighten the screws and take this thing to the next level. And the World Economic Forum is the perfect opportunity to do that. Well, I think we saw last week the World Economic Forum has been defanged. It's really lost its teeth. And Trump flexing on them and forcing them to host the signing ceremony for the Board of Peace, which represents basically the usurpation of what Epstein is describing right here, where it's not going to be the World Economic Forum who takes over. It's going to be the Board of Peace, which is really, I think, just window dressing for, just collaboration. Like there doesn't need to be like a hierarchy. There doesn't need to be a global governance. There doesn't need to be a platform, a system that kind of comes in and imposes itself on sovereign nations. There just needs to be commonality, common interest, and countries that are entangled with one another economically, where they say, hey, we actually don't want this country to get bombed out by this other country because we're going to lose a lot of money if we do. So let's figure this out. Like that's really what I think the future is. And as these deals are all being put together and put in place, having the optics of like this top-down control from the Board of Peace, I think is beneficial for the short interim. But remember, Trump appointed himself king for life of the Board of Peace. Like he's the chairman for life, and there's no like line of secession. So I think when he's done, the Board of Peace just kind of dissolves and goes away. And just that idea of collaborating to resolve these issues from a first principle standpoint, not from like a global governance standpoint, is probably how this plays out. But the fact that we haven't paid our dues, we still owe, I think it's like $1.2 billion for our 2025 dues. And at some point, we are going to be basically kicked off the Security Council. Not kicked off, but we're not going to be allowed to vote on anything at the Security Council, which means we can't veto anything, which means that we can't stop the two-state solution, which we have been the thing stopping the two-state solution for the past 5 years. We've been the one country that's been vetoing any sort of two-state solution effort. And so if we lose that vote, not that the UN gets to decide, this or that, but remember the UN created Israel. The UN, doing the two-state solution is kind of symbolic in terms of like it coming full circle.
That is fascinating. The kind of being able to subvert the two-state solution without directly subverting it is amazing, or get it implemented without, that is awesome. What else you got?
Okay, so let's talk about like we're talking about Russia. So let's talk about let's see. Well, we're already talking about Epstein in Russia, so let's just go ahead and kind of talk about that first. We now have a coordinated effort to present to present that Epstein was a Russian agent. So here's the Telegraph, which is a big British paper. Epstein's links to Putin and Kremlin spies raised fears he was a Russian agent. Pedophile financier suspected of being engaged in the world's largest honey trap operation. And basically the TLDR on this is that I think Russia/Putin is named 9,000 times in the files. But as John was saying last night, so here's the France 24 Daily Mail: Epstein's sex empire was honey trap directed by the KGB. So now they're saying that he was working for the KGB the whole time. But as John
been gone since the 90s.
What's that?
Hasn't the KGB been like dissolved?
The KGB was dissolved when the Soviet Union collapsed. Correct.
Now is it the FSB?
Yeah, the FSB. Mm-hmm. Yes, and a lot of the KGB agents were hunted down by Putin, right? So it's kind of again, it's a very silly fairy tale they talk about with the KGB. But what's interesting, like John pointed out last night on Baseless Conspiracies, that a lot of the mentions are news articles that are being copy pasted into emails.
Right.
So like that's where a lot of the mentions are coming from. But here's one that I thought was really interesting that stood out to me, which was here. Let me see if I can open this a new tab. I might make it a little easier. Here we go. Okay, so here we have an email and a text message. So here's an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Ariane de Rothschild. This is from March 18th, 2014. So this would have been 1 month after the Maidan coup of Ukraine. And she says, hi, Jeff, very long day sitting on bank board. Neighbors are okay, but not satisfactory to me. And I'm putting them under pressure to be more innovative about asset management funds while restructuring. I'm in dinner with a client, fed up. I miss our talks and hope you are well. We'll be at home tomorrow night. Will you be free? Let's discuss Ukraine. And then the reply from Epstein back is Ukraine upheaval should provide many opportunities. Many. Okay, so this is Epstein, and he also discloses in another email that he's working like $25 million contract where he's working for the Rothschilds. So he is an agent of the Rothschilds. He's admitting that in an email to somebody else. Okay, and then here's a text message between Larry Sanders and Epstein. And Epstein is texting Larry Sanders and says, Ukraine looking for advice, not sure where to start. Mentally strong is the key to your recovery. Discipline, doing lots of things you don't want to do, taking some time to clear your head. You know, I think that's a different conversation. But then Larry Summers, I'm sorry, not Sanders. Larry Summers responds, we can discuss Ukraine. I know a little having been a number of times to Pinchuk conference and having helped push their debt relief under or during Jaresko time as foreign minister. And then Epstein replies, Zelensky looking for help, Putin dismissive, saying he is run by Israelis. So here is Epstein saying that Putin is dismissing Zelensky because he accuses Zelensky of being run by Israel. That's pretty interesting to me. So again, there's a lot of instances of like Epstein trying to get in with the Russians and the Russians kind of stonewalling him a lot. I mean, there are plenty of Russians that I think he probably did meet with, but basically they're trying to spin it now and be like, oh, he was working for Putin. He was working for the Kremlin. He was working for Russia the whole time. And that kind of, is a total deflection. I think we can all agree that it's Russia, Russia, Russia all over again. But that kind of takes us to what happened in Abu Dhabi yesterday. So in Abu Dhabi, we had the Russians meet with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. It says President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, will meet with leaders from Russia. This is from Sunday. Will meet leaders from Russia and Ukraine in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday and Thursday and is set to hold talks with Iranian officials in Istanbul on Friday, a White House official said. Witkoff is scheduled to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and IDF Chief of Staff General Ayel Zamir in Jerusalem on Tuesday before traveling to Abu Dhabi for trilateral talks on Russia-Ukraine tensions. He will then move to Turkey for discussions with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on a potential nuclear deal, the first such U.S.-Iran meeting in months. The talks are the result of recent diplomatic efforts by Turkey, Egypt, Qatar. Iranian officials signaled readiness for diplomacy while warning against coercion. Diplomacy is incompatible with pressure, intimidation, and force. We hope that its results will soon become evident, Araghchi said on Monday. So right now, Witkoff is in Jerusalem, meeting with Netanyahu and Zamir, who's the head of the IDF. He's then going to go to Abu Dhabi tomorrow for trilateral talks with the Russians and the Ukrainians. At the same time, while this is all happening, the Iranians are going to be in Istanbul, which is Turkey, meeting with the Qataris and the Saudis and the Egyptians. They're game planning their own Middle East stuff, right? And then they're going to be joined by Wickoff on Friday to discuss a nuclear deal between the U.S. and Iran. So we're going to get a nuclear deal between the U.S. and Iran, I think, is where this is all heading. Wow. And of course, this is why Mark Levin is chimping out, of course, and flinging his feces at the wall, as I mentioned earlier. So let's look at what that looks like, and let's actually back up a little bit. Let's back up to the Monday edition of Badlands news brief. Here's Trump being asked about this situation over the weekend on Air Force One.
Some people think that, some people don't. You can make a negotiated deal that would be satisfactory with no nuclear weapons. They should do that, but I don't know that they will. But they are talking to us, seriously talking to us.
They are seriously talking to us, talking about Iran. Here is Abbas speaking to, doing an interview about this.
I'm not concerned about war. What I'm concerned of is...
Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran, doing an interview. I think this is CNN?
I'm not concerned about...
Yes, CNN.
About war. What I'm concerned of is miscalculations and military operation based on misinformation and disinformation campaigns. It is obvious to us that there are certain elements,
Oh, what happened?
What happened? No,
it is obvious to us that there are certain elements,
Oh, it keeps freezing at that one part.
That's really weird. If you hold on 1 second, I have the raw video. Let me just pull up the raw video.
While you're doing that, let me go ahead, and we got a sponsor that we got to take care of real quick. So we'll go through that one more time. Yeah, hold on 1 second here. All right, there we go. Guys, they can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or support. Big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. And that's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. Buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin in one secure place. No permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support your creators that you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. This isn't a credit line that they can shut off. It's your wallet permanently. Yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. When the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today and download Rumble Wallet and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. All right. All you, brother. Oh, you're muted again.
All right. So, yeah, here we'll play the raw video here.
War. What I'm concerned of is miscalculations and military operation based on misinformation and disinformation campaigns. It is obvious to us that there are certain elements, certain parties who want to drag President Trump into this war for their own benefits. And I think President Trump is wise enough to make the correct decision.
So there's Araghchi acknowledging that he knows President Trump doesn't want to fight a war. They don't want to fight a war, and he knows that Trump is surrounded by people who do want the war. So let's go look at those people right now. Here is Lindsey Graham. As I said, I teased this earlier on Sunday. We're not going to watch the full clip because it's like 3 minutes. We'll watch like a minute of it.
100 years of chaos. I have every confidence that President Trump will do what he promised to the people. Help is on the way. Keep protesting. If this regime falls, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they all go. It'd be the biggest change since the fall of the Berlin Wall. But here's one thing I know. Donald Trump is Ronald Reagan plus in my mind. Venezuela, soon Cuba. The one thing you can't do as president, talk like Reagan and act like Obama. There's no deal to be done here. These people are not trustworthy. The protesters in the street are not protesting for a better nuclear deal. They're protesting for a better life. And if they win the day, we have a chance to have friends with the people of Iran. The Ayatollah will never be our friend. He's a religious Nazi. President Trump, you said help is on the way. That has to be real. It has to be real soon. Do it, Mr. President. The people of Iran are begging you to be on their side.
The people of Iran are begging you to drop bombs on their heads and kill them. Like, that's what he's saying, which is nonsense. There's actually the people of Iran are actually in the streets in support of the government, which they don't love. They don't love the government. There's also no evidence. I haven't seen any proof of life the Ayatollah is even still alive. I wonder if he's dead. He, like a year ago, he was, bedridden in the hospital, apparently having some real issues. He's old, he's only the second Ayatollah ever. The first one, I think, died like 25 years ago. So, I'm not sure that the Ayatollah is even still alive. We're definitely dealing with Arakchi and Pezeshkian, who are moderates. They're not like religious zealots at all. They've boxed all those people out. And I would encourage everyone to go listen to my special that I did last Wednesday, the Geopolitics with Ghost, where I spent an hour just running through Iranian devolution. They have engaged devolution. Back in early August, they created something using a constitutional, I think it's Article 176 of their constitution, to create something called the Defense Council. And basically what they did is they devolved the power of the centralized government to the 31 governors that rule each one of these provinces. And they gave the governors the ability to cut through all the bureaucracy and the red tape and engage in trade agreements with foreign countries where they can use the foreign currency and also a barter system if necessary in order to get goods imported to their country that they need. And there's a lot of foresight there because we saw in January, a month ago, the Iranian rial, their currency was artificially crashed. And then right after that, that's when Trump stepped up and said, help is on the way, help is on the way, like push forward, get the institutions, take over. And then the same day, Elon Musk stepped in and said, everyone can have free Starlink in Iran, right? Because they took down the internet, and then everyone started using Starlink to coordinate the riots and the assault on the government. And then Arakchi and Pezeshkian came out and said, yeah, the Russians helped us hack the Starlink, so we located all of the provocateurs and arrested all of them. So I think, and all of those people, of course, were working for Mossad and CIA, thousands of operatives who I think were probably put in place over decades, probably by Soleimani. I think they were probably Soleimani's people. Which is why Netanyahu didn't want to kill Soleimani. We did anyway, which I think set back the operation to do this color revolution. But now they've blown their load. Like, they can't do it again. They've played their hand. They can't do another color revolution in Iran. That's very clear now. And that's one of the reasons that they're all screaming at Trump to start this war, because this is their one shot to overthrow the government and start a war with Iran, which would then start a war with Russia and China. And Trump's not taking the bait. Here is Mike Huckabee. So now let's shift to Mike Huckabee in Turkey. So here's Mike Huckabee giving an interview to Channel 12 Israel.
Who got the F-35s? Israel.
Turkey will get F-35s. No, they won't.
No, they're not going to get F-35s.
Even though he announced that he would give them F-35s?
It has to go through the Senate, and it's not likely to happen. And also, Turkey, by law, would not be able to get them unless they made major changes in the hardware that they have from Russia.
Yeah, so there's Mike Huckabee subverting President Trump, who publicly proclaimed he's going to give his guy Erdogan the F-35s that they paid for back in 2018 and still have not received. And Trump said, I promise you're going to get those F-35s as part of that whole nuclear deal they announced back in September. Here's Mike Huckabee saying, yeah, the president's lying. We are going to shut it down in Congress. The deep state will make sure that the sale doesn't get approved. And even if it does get approved by law, because they are so deeply in bed with Russia, they're not going to get those F-35s. So Israel doesn't need to worry about that. Here is from over the weekend, Trump's best friend, who is also the ambassador to Turkey and the special envoy to Syria, Tom Barrack, speaking at the Middle East Peace Summit, or I'm sorry, the Middle East and Africa Summit in Abu Dhabi.
Look, the great thing is we have a bromance between our two presidents, right? We have President Trump and President Erdogan, who found this bond in a very unusual relationship.
Yeah. So there you go. Bromance is the word he uses to describe Trump's relationship with Erdogan, which is 100% true. That goes back to 2019. Trump spoke very highly of Erdogan in 2019. And the reason this is important is because Levin comes out and says this on Sunday. He's responding to somebody who says, how convenient, Turkey does not enrich uranium, but may enjoy having a huge stockpile of highly enriched uranium for future bombs from Iran. The U.S. or Europe can turn any surviving Iranian enriched uranium into fuel for future democratically elected Iranian government's power plants. And then Levin says Erdogan is evil, no deals. But that's exactly what we are going to get, Mark. We're going to get deals. And then he says Iran tries to fool the president by claiming mutual respect while comparing him to a dog in Farsi, which isn't true. No way the president will fall for it. The genocidal terror regime is evil, but certain of his advisors will likely fall for it. So he's basically calling Trump an idiot and saying that Trump is going to fall for this. And then he says, don't miss my show tonight, folks. 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox, decision time on Iran, peace through strength, which means war, or a future with terrorism and genocide. And then the most recent post Sunday night when I wrote this was he's citing an article from the Jerusalem Post that's entitled "The Silence of the Graveyard: Why the West Abandons Iran to the Ayatollahs." It's an op-ed, and he says it's a disgrace. So he's calling President Trump a disgrace right here.
Wow.
And so then if we jump forward to today's news brief, where I'm commenting on these meetings that are happening in the Middle East this week that basically do everything that Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham and Mike Huckabee said cannot happen. Here's Mark Levin just absolutely chimping out, saying there's a relentless effort to screw Israel with these new Gaza entities. Even this below, who the hell is in charge of this? Referring to the peace board. And my response was, well, the person in charge of it is President Donald John Trump. Maybe you've heard of him. Chairman for life, by the way, Mark. And here's the post he's responding to. It's from open source intel. It says the prime minister's office, Netanyahu, quote, the logo of the Gaza Administration Committee, NCAG, that was presented to Israel was completely different from the one published this evening. Israel will not accept the use of the Palestinian Authority symbol, and the Palestinian Authority will not be a partner in managing Gaza. And so the original NCAG logo was this phoenix on the left, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of Gaza. And then when they actually sent the official proposal to Netanyahu, it had the Palestinian Authority's logo on it. And he's screaming like, what the hell? Like, this is just the Palestinian Authority with a different name written underneath it. And so that's why they're freaking out. They're freaking out because this is a bait and switch. Trump has presented this as, oh yeah, we're going to replace the Palestinian Authority and Hamas with something different. And it's actually just the Palestinian Authority being given control over Gaza, which they negotiated with Hamas back in 2017. And then Hamas didn't follow through. So again, like, that's why they're freaking out. Here's Levin one last time. Since we're negotiating with the Islamist Nazi regime that's murdered 50,000 of its own people in the last few weeks, will we be insisting on freedom for the Iranian people, which means war? So again, like, for people who think, who are buying into this narrative that Trump is a puppet of a foreign diaspora or, Israel, it's all of the breadcrumbs, all of the signal suggests the complete opposite. But I think we're going to see now in the next few weeks, maybe a few months, why it was so important for Trump to play this so close to the chest and be kind of fast and loose with it, because this whole apparatus is now going to mobilize against him. And it's probably going to get a little scary, I think, honestly, like in terms of just the narrative, because they are going to go full tilt against Trump when they realize that he has betrayed them, basically. Not because he's betraying Israel, not because he's betraying, peace. He's betraying this group of people who wanted World War III. And they thought they were getting it in the form of a war between Israel and Iran, which means a war between the U.S. and Russia/China.
Wow, there's going to be a just slew of slings and arrows thrown at President Trump over the coming months, man. Between the elections domestically and the Israel and the Iran deals over there, this is going to be pretty crazy.
Last thing, it's not a story, it's just a headline. Gustavo Petro at the White House today.
He can't stop needing Trump even days before a White House meeting.
Yeah, this is just the New York Times article from yesterday.
Wow.
But yeah, he's at the White House February 3rd.
That's
And
today.
so that's today. So he is at the White House today. Gustavo
What
Petro.
time is that at? Are you going to cover that on Politics with Ghost?
Assuming that something happens before then, yes. But my guess is that we're going to see. I mean, what I'm hoping we see is I'm hoping we see some sort of like heartfelt moment where Trump kind of like exonerates Petro of being the head of a cartel and be like, oh, actually, he's the guy who's been fighting the cartel this whole time. I think we might see something like that, and that's going to be a major milestone in like that whole narrative.
Fascinating. All right, guys, and be sure to tune in Geopolitics with Ghost today at 2 p.m., Daily Herald at 1 p.m., Badlands Book Club at 6 p.m., going through stolen elections with Colonel Towner and Ash. And if you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up. Just under 4,000 watching. So thank you guys for all being here. Bread Hour with a Rumble rant says Peter Attia, a health influencer who promoted low carb and fasting, was in the Epstein files over 1,000 times. Yet Epstein was unable to fix his low testosterone. So low carb is the Epstein diet? I don't know. I would go carnivore diet before I would go low carb. Although I guess that technically would be a low carb diet. But carnivore, baby, you want to get that tea up? Go straight meat, red meat, all the red meat. All right, Gordon. Besides Geopolitics with Ghost at 2 p.m., what else you got?
I have the Breaking History tomorrow at noon, and I'm also going to start. I think I'm going to. I have a Substack that I haven't done anything with in a few years. So I think I might start doing like my own little, just like geopolitical newsletter on that. So if you want to subscribe to it, I'll throw the link in the chat. But I'm probably going to try to do something with it, maybe tomorrow or Thursday, and then try to do regular updates, maybe a few times a week. So we'll see. But yeah.
All right, guys, and I will have. I'm going to put up a. I'm doing a reading of the 26 count report that they used in Fulton County to justify as the basis for the search warrant, one of the basis of the search warrant. So I'm going to have the executive summary live streamed on my my personal account at 4 p.m. today. So it's outside of the scope of any of the Badlands. So if you guys want to check that out, rumble.com/CannCon. And of course, Badlands Book Club tonight at 6 p.m. It's going to be a great show. Colonel Towner coming in on that book is so clutch, and
nice
being able to unpack all the CIA stuff in that book. It is absolutely fascinating, and I look forward to doing that every single Tuesday. So we'll see you guys there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great day.
See you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.